Welcome to the Dynamics of Everyday Life, where we demystify some tricky concepts and get to know ourselves a little bit better. Welcome back to the Dynamics of Everyday Life. For those of you who know me, you'll know that I'm very much a verbal processor. So what that means is I talk to think. Now, this can be highly entertaining for some people and extremely irritating for others. I love a bit of context to a story. I like to think I can be witty when the moment takes me. And I also feel that I'm open with what I'm sharing. The other side of this is that I can tangent wildly and I can take you on a merry dance around the houses without actually getting to the point I was trying to make in the first place. I promise you, it's not just annoying for those listening to it. I'm going through some changes in my business and the way that I work, and not being a natural businesswoman, although I like to think I've got a little bit of Alexis Colby from Dynasty in me, what's actually happening is I'm getting quite caught up in all the bright, shiny objects out there. And on social media, there are 1,000,001 people telling you what you should be doing. So I have a bit of FOMO and panic creeping in. I mean, what if the message that I just ignored really was someone who could take me to 7 figures overnight with one easy step? Or what if the reel that I just whipped past really could take me to over 1 million followers? I'm a bit sceptical on this one though, because a lot of followers does not equal cash. Likes are lovely, but they're not going to keep me in expensive psychodynamic textbooks. So what I've decided to do is I have taken the plunge and I'm practicing what I preach and all that. I'm getting some proper business coaching and mentoring. And as every good business coach, well, every good coach does, you have a discovery call with them. So I have my discovery call with Trish, my business coach, and I am in full flow. I'd probably started a point about my business that I was finding challenging, and then I'd segued seamlessly into something that one of my children did that amused me. And Trish stops me with a, "Why are you telling me this?" Now, it wasn't an uninterested question. I mean, she certainly didn't sound bored, but it really did stop me in my tracks. And it made me ask myself the question, why am I talking about this right now? And I paused and I thought for a moment. And then I realised that there are quite a few reasons why I do this. And some are more supportive to me than others. So the obvious one, first of all, is that I'm sharing some trivia about myself or engaging in some banter with the prime aim to connect with the other person. Connection is key to us. It's one of our basic needs. So it's no surprise that this is something that I do. I want to connect with people. Like many of us, since the pandemic, I work remotely most of the time. However, instead of it working for me in this moment, what was happening was it was actually getting in the way. Trish and I already know each other. We already have that know-like trust between us. So I didn't need to do it for that reason. We both agreed that I don't need to do that. And I really don't want to waste any time sharing anecdotes that don't help me with moving forward. Now, not so obvious is that I'm using this as a defence mechanism. When I talk in this way, there's an awful lot of energy going into it. I like to think I can be quite amusing. Someone once said I reminded them of Victoria Wood, which I take to be an incredible compliment. She was one of my favourite people, one of my favourite comedians, and to be likened to her in any way is fabulous. However, it's also a way of keeping the other person at bay. By my constant stream of talking, or very clear direction of the conversation, what I'm doing is maintaining where I am in relation to the other person. So how close I am allowing them to come towards me. I can appear to be very open and sharing, but I'm only sharing what works for me and a particular side of me. It's the version of me that I choose to come out to play and which I allow other people to see. And by working pretty hard like this, what I'm actually doing is shutting someone out. Let's get our defence mechanism bingo cards out. It's been a while. And today, we've got a defence mechanism that we don't talk about as much. We're going to be looking at reaction formation. What we're doing with reaction formation is that we're unconsciously replacing an unacceptable thought, feeling or impulse with its opposite. As usual, with defence mechanisms, the mind is doing this to try to avoid feeling anxious. We really do not want to be feeling anxious. And by being chatty, witty and generally excitable, I can mask to other people and to myself what's actually going on for me. And with a bit of prompting from Trish, I acknowledge that I'm actually quite frightened with what I'm doing in my business. It's a big deal putting myself out there. What if no one's interested? What if I fall flat on my face? I love all these things that I talk about, but what if no one else cares? And when you look at it that way, it's no wonder I try and hide this from myself and other people by being perky. But they aren't getting to see the real me and maybe support the real me in my ventures. And I'm sabotaging myself without even knowing about it. Now, don't get me wrong, I can self-sabotage knowingly too. Spending far too long on Stan Wawrinka's social media feeds? Check. Googling who is in the running for the next James Bond? That's me in a nutshell. And I know that. But it wasn't until I was asked the question, why are you telling me this, that I really questioned my other behaviour, because I honestly just thought it was part of my personality and who I am. It's a bit unnerving to realise that it's not necessarily my behaviour, it's a defensive behaviour. Tying in with reaction formation, we've also got denial. Remember, denial is where we will refuse to accept facts to be true, even if there's overwhelming evidence to show that it is. Denial is linked to reaction formation here because I'm denying that I'm feeling something other than excitement about my business ventures. And reaction formation fights hard to keep that denial working. And when you think about it, in looking at things this way, we can start to see how active defence mechanisms can be. There's a dynamic that exists between denial and reaction formation, and by them working together, I can try and hold on to some form of equilibrium in my mind. Let's top all this off with a nice bit of intellectualisation. This is where we manage our feelings in a logical and factual way instead of actually dealing with them. It makes perfect sense that I'm frightened about where I'm going to take my business. Absolutely. I can tell myself that. But how do I actually feel about this? I didn't realise I was frightened until I was stopped in my tracks. Now that I realise I am, in all honesty, I'm a bit shocked and I'm not sure what to do with it. That's something I'll deal with in my business planning sessions. My invitation to you this week is for you to consider where in your life you might be choosing to tell people things and it might not be as supportive to you as you realise. We all know the feeling of talking too quickly and too much to hide our nerves, maybe to fill an uncomfortable silence. Where else have you been doing this? There may be some unexpected times that this has been happening. And, as always, give yourself some grace. It can be a bit of a shock to notice that behaviour we thought was helping us bond with other people is actually doing the opposite. Like with me discovering that I was frightened about developing my business, new and surprising feelings can surface, which we never knew were there. Looking at ourselves at this level can be challenging and unnerving as we develop our awareness, so I'd always encourage that you do this at your own speed. If you feel you need some extra help around this, then I've put together a PDF resource sheet and you can find the link for this in the show notes. If you'd like to have a chat with me about psychodynamics or whether I'm the right coach, supervisor or mentor for you, then click on the link that's also in the show notes. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Dynamics of Everyday Life. Please hit the follow button for future episodes and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow me on Instagram at The Dynamics of Everyday Life or find me on LinkedIn at Julia Rogers. I'd love to hear from you and hear your thoughts on dynamics. The Dynamics of Everyday Life is brought to you by Coaching 42 and the fabulous team at the Podcast Boutique.